Hello, welcome to the Daily News Currents. Today is Tuesday, September 24th, and today we have inside the Trump ad hammering Harris over Americans' economic woes, suspect in Trump assassination attempt outlined plans in note, California sues Exxon over plastic pollution and recycling myth, nearly all of Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson's campaign staff quits after CNN report, an experimental Fragile X held him back. An experimental drug is helping him break free. Inside the Trump ad hammer, Trey's voters struggling to make ends meet. She is seen laughing gleefully. Former President Donald J. Trump began running this 30-second ad linking Vice President Kamala Harris to President Biden and the administration's economic record on television stations in at least 5 key battleground states last week. The campaign has spent $2.8 million on these commercials, according to Ad Impact. On the screen, the ad begins with a blurry image of laughing Miss Harris standing behind Mr. Biden on a stage, reaching out and grabbing his shoulder, physically linking them, as the words "Bidenomics is a failure" blare across the screen. More bleak headlines follow. Bidenomics failed. Bidenomics is a record failure. Americans' incomes down 3 straight years. Unemployment rising. Americans may soon be in a recession. The ad shows scenes intended to evoke Americans struggling as they go about their lives. A man putting gas in his pickup truck, a family standing morosely in front of a house with a for sale sign, construction workers in hard hats, a man looking somberly out a window scratching his head. Another headline warns, Bidenomics hit families with $5,600 pay cut, before a grainy video shows Miss Harris happily declaring, "We are very proud of Bidenomics." The ad ends with a close-up of Miss Harris laughing, followed by a photo of Trump pumping his fist in front of the American flag, and the words, "Americans trust Trump on the economy." The script. Narrator. Their Bidenomics led to a highest inflation in 40 years, highest gas prices ever, skyrocketing interest rates, unaffordable housing, incomes down, unemployment rising, and a recession now headed our way. Yet Kamala Harris is clueless. Harris. We are very proud of Bidenomics. Bidenomics is working. The ad accurately cites some economic data, including the high inflation, rising interest rates, and record gas prices that occurred during Mr. Biden's term in office. The ad blames the president's economic policies for these outcomes. Economics disagree about whether the role his policies have played. Mr. Trump and Mr. Biden both passed government stimulus spending packages in response to COVID. Republicans have blamed the Biden package for rising inflation, but Democrats credit it for smoothing the nation's recovery from the pandemic. Unemployment is now lower than when Mr. Biden took office, although it has risen slightly from its low point in 2022. The takeaway? This ad encapsulates 2 of Mr. Trump's main political objectives in the final stages of the race, remind voters of what they did not like about Mr. Biden's presidency, and tie Ms. Harris to those things. Mr. Trump may not be running against Mr. Biden anymore, but the ad is not subtle in showing how central the president remains to his strategy. Not only does it show Mr. Biden and Ms. Harris together, the word Bidenomics repeatedly appears on screen, and Ms. Harris uses the phrase twice, approvingly. Showing Ms. Harris laughing is an unsubtle way to portray her as an out of touch or unconcerned with the economic pain Americans are feeling. The final words that appear are an attempt to remind voters that polls show that what they already believe, that Mr. Trump is someone they can trust on economic issues. The Trump campaign believes that if voters are focused chiefly on the economy in November, he will win. Suspect in Trump assassination attempt outlined plans in note. The disclosure included in a court filing paints the clearest picture yet of an itinerant contractor who repeatedly said he was willing to die to defend Ukraine. A 58-year-old man accused of trying to assassinate former President Donald J. Trump acknowledged in a pre-written note that he had planned the attack and even predicted his future, according to a federal court filing on Monday. The man, Ryan W. Ruth, staked out the grounds of Mr. Trump's golf course in West Palm Beach, Florida, for a month before the episode, the filing said. He positioned himself outside the fence at the 6th hole of the course on September 15th, before a Secret Service agent scouting one hole ahead of the former president's group spotted him and the barrel of his gun. At the time he was seen, Mr. Ruth had aligned himself directly to the sixth hole, with the intention of shooting Mr. Trump from a relatively short distance with a semi-automatic rifle. Prosecutors said the rifle, equipped with a scope and left at the scene, had a bullet in the chamber and a total of 11 rounds. Investigators also found Mr. Ruth's fingerprints on the weapon. This was an assassination attempt on Donald Trump, but I failed you. I tried my best and gave all the gumption I could muster, Mr. Ruth wrote in a note placed inside a box left at a friend's house, found by investigators after he was arrested. It is up to you to finish the job, and I will offer $150,000 to whoever can complete the job. In the note, Mr. Ruth also wrote that Mr. Trump was unfit to be president. Mr. Ruth had left the note at the house several months before the shooting, an indication that he had been planning the assassination for a long time. Mr. Ruth was scheduled to appear before a federal judge in West Palm Beach on Monday morning for a detention hearing. Last week, he was charged with possessing a firearm as a felon, which carries a prison sentence of up to 15 years, and the possession of a firearm with an obliterated serial number. Prosecutors disclosed a new information in a memo written to convince a federal judge to detain Mr. Ruth indefinitely while he awaits trial. The filing paints the clearest picture up to date of an itinerant and impoverished contractor who repeatedly professed his willingness to die to defend Ukraine. Law enforcement officials searching Mr. Ruth's Nissan SUV found a handwritten list of dates in August, September, and October 2024 and venues where the former president had appeared or was expected to be present, according to the memo. Agents also found 6 cell phones, including one that contained a Google search of how to travel from Palm Beach County to Mexico, 12 pair of gloves, a Hawaii driver's license in Mr. Ruth's name, and a passport. In their memo, prosecutors also noted Mr. Ruth's extensive criminal history, saying he was convicted of multiple counts of possessing stolen goods. In 2002, he was charged in North Carolina with possessing a weapon of mass death and destruction, a felony. Court documents describe the weapon as a binary explosive with a 10-inch detonation and a blasting cap. He was convicted and placed on supervised probation for 60 months. California sues Exxon over plastic pollution and recycling myth. The lawsuit, seeking multiple billions of dollars, opens a new front in the legal battles with oil and gas companies over climate and environmental issues. The Attorney General of California, Rob Bonta, sued ExxonMobil on Monday, alleging that the oil giant carried out a decades-long campaign of deception that overhyped the promise of recycling and spawned a plastic pollution crisis. The suit, filed in Superior Court in San Francisco, argued that people were more likely to buy single-use plastics because of the false belief promoted by ExxonMobil that they would be recycled. Mr. Bonita said the company is a leading producer of a key component used to make single-use plastics. The suit seeks unspecified damages that Mr. Bonta estimated would amount of multiple billions of dollars. In an interview, Mr. Bonta and the plastic pollution was fueled by the myth of recycling, and the leaders among them in perpetuating that myth is ExxonMobil. The company did not immediately respond to a request for comment on Monday. The case opens a new front in legal battles against oil and gas companies over climate and environmental issues. More than 24 state and local governments, including California, have sued companies for their role in the climate crisis, making claims that the companies deceived the public in a quest for profit. None have gone to trial yet. The California suit on Monday alleged that ExxonMobil promoted the widely used chasing arrow symbol on plastic products, which led buyers to believe that their bottles and other products would in fact be recycled if disposed properly. But only about 5% of plastic waste in the United States is recycled, according to Mr. Bonta's office, citing an estimate by the advocacy group Beyond Plastics, which looked at 2021 data. At the same time, the amount of plastics manufactured, much of it single-use, grows yearly. The suit comes after a more than 2-year investigation by Mr. Bonta's office, which issued subpoenas to ExxonMobil and plastic industry groups in April 2022. The Attorney General said that the investigation uncovered new information about misleading claims that ExxonMobil made about its advanced recycling program, which claims to transform used plastics into new products. His office said the case would be the first effort by American government official to hold a petrochemical company accountable for deception regarding plastics. Most of the waste processed through the company's advanced recycling program is made into fuel, and the new products contain little material that was actually recycled, but they are marked and sold at premium, the suit alleges. In a statement, Mr. Bonta's office called the advanced recycling program a public relations stunt. The suit pointed to deleterious effects of plastic utensils, cups and straws, and other everyday objects, noting that they break down into microplastics and it could escape into the environment and contaminate drinking water and soil. Researchers have found evidence of microplastics inside the human body. The lawsuit called for the establishment of an abatement fund and other financial penalties. In a report entitled The Fraud of Plastic Recycling earlier this year, the Center of Climate Integrity and Advocacy Group concluded that fossil fuels and other petrochemical companies have used the false promise of recycling to exponentially increase virgin plastic products over the last 6 decades. Plastics are made from fossil fuels and are a part of a category of products called petrochemicals. The report concluded that the recycling plastics had failed because of technical and economic limitations. Even when recycling is technically possible, it can be more expensive than producing new plastic, thus economically not viable, it said. Mr. Bonta said the concerns about recycling effectiveness can lead to a greater emphasis on reusing items like water bottles and shopping bags for people who want to curb their contribution to pollution. I think people need to know the limits of recycling, and the fact that what they thought they had been recycling for years has not really been recycled, he said. Nearly all of Lieutenant Government Mark Robinson's campaign staff quits after CNN report. Days after a CNN report about racist and sexual comments posted on a pornography forum, all but a few of Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson's campaign team quit their jobs on Sunday. A campaign news release said that 4 top staffers have left the campaign: Conrad Pergolewski, general consultant and senior advisor who worked for Robinson since his initial 2020 lieutenant governor campaign; Chris Rodriguez, campaign manager; Heather Weiler, finance director; and Jason Ridzik, deputy campaign manager. But WUNC has confirmed that other staffers have quit as well, leaving Robinson with just 3 people working on his campaign: 2 campaign spokesmen and a bodyguard. The list of departures also include longtime director of operations Patrick Riley and political directors John Contalucis and Jackson Lawyer. Sunday's news release says that new staff hires will be announced in the coming days, but hiring a new campaign team less than 2 months from Election Day will be tough for a campaign rocked by scandal. The lengthy CNN report, published Thursday afternoon, highlights comments posted to an online pornography forum called Nude Africa from a user calling themselves Mark Robinson, with many of his personal biographical details and an email address associated with the man who is now the Republican nominee for governor. The report includes a long list of sexually explicit and racist comments posted to the site between 2008 and 2012, long before Robinson entered politics as a candidate for lieutenant governor in 2020. The commenter describes himself as a black Nazi, called for the reinstatement of slavery, says he enjoys watching transgender pornography, and describes a time he spied on a woman taking showers in a locker room. Robinson has denied that he wrote the post, but other Republicans have been distancing themselves from the GOP nominee for governor in recent days. President Donald Trump made no mention of Robinson during a Saturday rally in Wilmington, even as the GOP nominee for Attorney General, Congressman Dan Bishop, spoke to the crowd. Robinson thanked his departing staffers in a news release. "I appreciate the efforts of those team members who have made the difficult choice to step away from the campaign, and I wish them well in their future endeavors," Robinson said in a release. Polls have consistently underestimated Republican support in North Carolina for several cycles now, and with a large portion of the electorate still undecided as we continue to ramp up our efforts across the state, I am confident our campaign remains in a strong position to make our case to voters and win on November 5th. Robinson took to X, formerly Twitter, on Monday morning to deny claims on the site by people claiming to be his campaign's new hires, including a prominent conspiracy theorist with an election-related felony conviction. Online rumors of new hires to our campaign are just that, rumors. We look forward to announcing additional staff roles soon. Robinson campaign website lists stop schedules for Monday in Wilkesboro and Boone. Fragile X held him back. An experimental drug is helping him break free. For 22 years, Jason Mazzola's life was defined by Fragile X, a genetic condition that often causes autism and intellectual disability. Jason, who is 24 now, needed constant supervision. He had debilitating anxiety and struggled to even answer simple questions. All that began to change when he started taking an experimental drug called zatomalast in May of 2023. It helps me focus a lot, helps me get more confident, more educated, Jason says. His mother, Lizzie Mazzola, credits zatomalast with transforming her son. I have a different child in my home, she says. He gets himself to work, he walks downtown, gets his hair cut, gets lunch. He wouldn't have done any of that before. Other parents of children with Fragile X are also reporting big changes with zatomalast. These anecdotes are supported by data. A 2021 study of 30 adult male participants with Fragile X found that taking zatomalast for 12 weeks improves performance on a range of memory and language measures. Now, 2 larger studies are underway that will determine whether zatomalast becomes the first drug approved by the Food and Drug Administration to treat Fragile X. Brain interrupted. Mazzola realized early on that Jason was falling behind. He could hardly talk by 3, he said. At 4, he started to put some words together, but he really wasn't talking in sentences. Genetic tests revealed the cause, Fragile X. The inherited condition affects the X chromosome, making one segment appear fragile or broken. This anomaly blocks production of a protein important to brain development. This can result in autism, ADHD, anxiety, sensory sensitivity, and a range of intellectual disabilities. For Jason, many of his symptoms were severe. Like many people with Fragile X, his IQ was in the 40s, and he was paralyzed by anxiety. Jason's twin sister, Jessica, also has Fragile X, but the symptoms are absent or much milder. That's often true of females with the condition. They typically benefit from having 2 X chromosomes, one of which is unaffected. So while Jessica went on to college, Jason was still barely able to converse, even with his parents. He always wanted to be social. He's a friendly person, Mazzola says, but because his communication skills were so impaired, he struggled to put his thoughts into words. Repurposing an Alzheimer's drug. By the time Jason was a teenager, scientists had begun studying the link between Fragile X and an enzyme that plays a role in memory and cognitive impairment. Much of the funding for this research came from the FRAXA Research Foundation, a group funded by parents of a child with Fragile X. FRAXA-funded researchers knew that there were drugs that could tweak the enzyme in a way that might help Fragile X's brain work better, but the drugs had side effects that made them unsuitable for people. Then one day, FRAXA got a call from Teretta Therapeutics, a small drug company in Michigan. They had this drug in clinical trials for Alzheimer's disease, recalls Dr. Michael Tranfalga, FRAXA's co-founder and medical director. They wanted to explore the possibility of using the drug in Fragile X. This made sense because the drug targeted the same enzyme FRAXA had been studying, and it did not seem to cause the side effects that had ruled out similar drugs. The next stop for Tetra was Dr. Elizabeth Berry Kravitz, a professional at Rush University Medical Center in Chicago. Berry Kravitz has been studying the way Fragile X affects brain development for nearly 3 decades and was receiving funding from FRAXA. She got a visit from a Tetra executive. Mark Gurney, who was the head of the company at the time, came to my office and said, "Hey, you've got this mechanism that you've been waiting for a drug for 28 years, and we've got a drug," Berry Kravitz recalls. The drug was zatomalast. Jason unbound. A flurry of research showed that zatomalast worked in fruit flies and mice with Fragile X. The 2021 study of 30 male adults extended the promising results to people. We saw an improvement in their memory and their vocabulary and their ability to read, Berry Kravitz says. The next step was to have Berry Kravitz oversee a pair of larger studies, one in males from 9 to 17, and the other in males from 18 to 45. The studies got underway in 2022, with funding from the Japanese drug company Shilgoi, which has acquired Tetra. Mazzola decided to enroll her son, Jason, who is now in his 20s. She was optimistic about zatomalast, despite having witnessed the failure of other promising drugs for Fragile X. It just seemed different, he said. It was affecting their cognition and IQ scores. At first, Mazzola and her husband didn't know if their son was getting Zalamass or a placebo. Within a few weeks, though, Jason did something remarkable. He walked into his father's home office and started a conversation. My husband said, "He has to be on the drug. He's never done that," Mazzola says. Jason is still talking about the drug and still improving, Mazzola says. He has a job washing dishes at a local assisted living facility. He helps his mom coach high school field hockey and lacrosse. Jason himself offers perhaps the most compelling evidence that the drug is working. At his home in the Boston suburb, the young man, who was once paralyzed by simple questions, agrees to an interview. When I asked Jason to tell me something about himself, he's got an answer. "I play a lot of sports like hockey, basketball, and golf," he says. "Golf is really fun because I play with my dad." "You good off the tee with the driver?" I asked. "Yeah, the driver, and the 6-iron, and the 7, and the putter." The scientific verdict on the drug will come when the study is completed, probably in 2025. That is all that I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!